Hi guys, it's Tara with EmmyBot here. If you are here to hear Heather speak about leveraging your intergenerational workforce, wow, that's a mouthful. You are in the right spot. So let's Oh, yep. Just make sure my camera's working. So, if you guys don't know Heather, Heather is a cybersecurity advocate with 30 years of cross industry experience, blending technical expertise with creative storytelling to engage the small business community. And I have to be honest, I love the posts that Heather makes on LinkedIn because she uses humor and education and a lot of pictures of black cats to raise awareness about cybersecurity. And I completely appreciate the humor and fun she brings to the space. So I'm going to bring Heather out here and she's going to get going on this. Hey, Heather.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you here. And I am about to turn this thing over to you.
Okay.
All right.
So what is that you see here on this screen? Now you can probably guess this is an AI picture of some sort, and it looks much better than I intended because AI tries to make things somewhat uniform. Rumor has it that when my husband was a child, they would some point midweek take all the leftovers in the fridge and throw them together, and his mom had this name for it called lolly dope, and that's just everything that doesn't really belong together just mashed up together. And that's a little bit about what this talk is today. I got pretty ambitious with it. And so imagine a Venn diagram of three things that don't really go together. And what we have then is this bowl, but it's not really this neat and uniform of the two shrimp and whatever the vegetable, maybe green beans and the ground beef and the mayonnaise and the wontons. At any rate, what this talk is with this intergenerational workforce title is some things mashed together that just don't quite belong. I'm Heather Noggle. I know Tara introduced me, but if you've got questions at the end over a little bit more about why I do crazy things like this with AI or anything that we talk about today, then please do ask them. So, given that, we've got some things that don't really belong together, right? So this talk's going to feel a little bit like we're teleporting between these three things before I start at the end here to bring it all together. So hang on. Whoosh, need some music in there. The first thing is communication, and I'm going to try to give you a 4-minute guide into a communication degree, which is really silly, right? I have one of those, though. It's from the 90s, but not so much has changed in human communication other than the electronic part of it that we're doing today. Obviously, nothing like this would have been possible. Talking with one or 47 or 400 of you via a webinar sitting in my basement. At any rate, the one thing we have in common here is today with the webinar, I am the sender. So I am speaking and you are listening, which makes you can guess it, the official communication term, you are the receiver. So we have a sender and we have a receiver, if only it were just that simple. Sender, receiver, we've got messages going back and forth, and for the geeky among us, maybe a sin and an ack. But that's not the case because in the middle of all this, where things sometimes start to break down, we have, see if you can guess the word, it's 5 letters and it starts with an N, noise. So between these messages we intend and these messages that our audience or the person we're speaking with one-on-one receive, there's noise. So there's something in there that means that the exact words that come out of my mind that are very clear coming out of my mouth may not be so clear to you. So there are 4 types of noise I'm going to talk about today. And the first one is physical. You can imagine 5 meowing cats outside my door wanting to get in and be part of this presentation. Maybe that's a thing. Crying baby in the other room, jackhammer doing something on the road next to you, any sort of physical noise. That one makes pretty good sense. And then we have physiological noise. Maybe it's 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock where you are. It's 1 o'clock here. Maybe you're hungry, and so you've got some belly ramblings in your stomach, and you want to eat. So that's a type of noise. Maybe you've got a headache or something like that. So that's physiological. There's something that might interfere with your capability to tune in to what's happening with this conversation. And then the third is psychological. Oh gosh, I forgot to take the trash out, didn't I? I meant to set that by the curb. Just something that might interfere with what's happening there, or maybe you just simply don't like my style and so you start to tune out. Maybe I'm dull or I don't inflect enough, or you just simply have other things on your mind that are in the queue that are more important than the person speaking. So any of these three can get in the way. And then the fourth one is not a P word, it's semantic. And that has to do with my capabilities as a speaker to convey what I'm talking about. So there are other types of noise, but again, we wanted a 3 to 4 minute communication degree. And so many of the things in communication, when you don't talk about the medium part of it, the media, have to do with sender receiver noise and then these four elements. There are other types. Again, you can look that up on your own. That's your assignment. So, one quick thing that I can give you when it comes to communication, especially if you have something that is really important that you would like to convey, is to do something called the AB pathway. This is really good with two people speaking with each other, is the listeners nodding along and then taking in the information, maybe taking some notes. And then at the end of the sender's communication to the receiver says, Heather, what I think I hear you saying is, and then a summary of that, which then gives the sender a moment to say, well, actually, maybe that's what you heard, but there are two other things in here that maybe the sender forgot to say or just needed some reemphasis. So there's your 3 to 4 minute communication degree. And I mentioned we're gonna go to three different things. It's gonna feel a little weird. So without further ado, let's go ahead and teleport. You ready? All right. I give a full length talk on intergenerational workforce, and that has some definite overlap with communication because as we work in work teams of two or more people, we have different things about us and the way that we see the world differs. So there's some diversity there, and usually the intergenerational piece of diversity is somewhat overlooked. But if you look here, I just listed the generations that are in today's workforce. We've got the baby boomers, and some of them are retiring. There are a few people in the previous generation who are still in the workforce, whether they're part time or consulting or working full time. Generation X is my generation. I was born right in the middle of that. The millennials come after that. We know this. Generation Z rising right now, graduating from college. I have a pair of Gen Z kids and coming soon into the workforce, even though you've probably not thought about this. Generation Alpha, born 2013 and beyond. Here in Missouri, where I live, 14-year-olds can work in certain scenarios part time with some rules. So if you do that math with that 2013 and you add those 14 years, in a scant 2 years, we are going to have 14-year-olds potentially working in our, I'm sorry, yes, 14-year-olds who are Generation Alpha working in our restaurants and some other things, and we'll have 5 generations in the workforce. So that's something to consider. The title of this, The Every Generation's Got Its Own Disease, is a song from a band called Fury in the Slaughterhouse. It's a 90s piece. So I encourage you to go check that out because it's an interesting thing. Again, I'd like to give a full length talk on this, so we're going to go whirlwind in through this segment, our second segment. So, why is that relevant that we've got 5 different generations in the workforce? Well, our values differ. And so I wanted to list a few things about maybe the way we see some things different across these different generations, even though we're looking at sometimes the same word. So if you use the word respect to a baby boomer, that is going to be something you earn. Respect is something you earn. With Generation Z, respect is something you lose. So if you're going to bring a Generation Z person to the table with a baby boomer, we've got to make some conversations to figure out how we're going to work together. Couple things, my Gen Z kids, my 18-year-old asked me to call him chopped, which means ugly, and he was just joking around. And I had to look that word up to make sure it was okay because he wanted a video of me calling him chopped. And, not in my language, that's okay. We all want to matter, but even that means something different. We want our work to matter. And we want to make a difference to Generation Z. That's exceptionally important. And in the other generations, it is too, but potentially in different ways. We want to make sure we're contributing. So, understanding that that looks different as well. This is my big point, so it's right in the middle. Experience and innovation are not on a continuum. They are not opposites. And so that's what
Hey,
Gen Z wants
Heather,
you. Yes.
I'm gonna pop in here real quick. Sorry, we think there's something wrong with your slide deck. We're not actually seeing you
Uh-oh.
go through it. So
Yeah,
Eric
that's a
is
problem.
jumping. Yeah, so Eric is jumping in to help. We were talking backstage about it. He's making himself a co-host real quick.
So
Sorry about
talking
that.
about communication when there's a problem, like, I'm going through these things and they're all rapid fire and you don't see a thing, I'm sure that's a lot of noise.
Yeah, I know. I
Okay.
was like, maybe Will just said here. I'm gonna bring up what Will said
Oh,
onto the
there's just
screen.
all sorts of fun we've been missing
I
too
thought
if the
Heather was
slide
just
deck's not
really
going.
excited about this,
Oh,
and I was like, I thought the same thing. I was like, wait, I feel like this should be moving. So
friends,
we're gonna,
rejection con has rejected me. So yeah, we'll figure it out.
yeah, give us
But
just one sec while he pops back in.
you bet. This slide
I
deck
mean, you're
is available too at the end. I mean, I can definitely drop the link to this in the chat. So if you missed a teleporting cat and everything. All right. I'll recalibrate everything. So hi everybody, I'm Heather Noggle. How you doing? I didn't introduce myself because Tara did, and I like to just drop into a talk anyway.
Heather, did you get
So
it fixed?
did I get it? What?
Did you get your slides fixed?
I don't know because they look just fine to me, and I do appear to be presenting from what I can see.
So you have 2 different screens up. The one
Okay.
screen that you're seeing is not the screen that you have shared, so that's
Ah,
where your slides are at, and the one where your backside deck is that shows the PowerPoint view is the one that you shared.
well, goodness, I didn't know there was a difference, and that makes perfect sense now. So am I
Yeah,
playing
but
a video? No. So how do I do this?
so
Here?
if you unshare your screen,
I think I did. Did I not?
let me take your,
I hate PowerPoint. Sorry.
I'm with you.
Everybody. Am I
Apologize.
backstage or do I need to talk to everybody?
No, you're on stage. Everybody can
Hi
hear us.
everybody.
Hi,
You get the
everybody.
backstage of how we deal with goofs because, it's kind of like missing an airplane and getting all embarrassed and having to find your way home and yeah, it's not fixed. So start slideshow. I'm still looking for where that might be.
And you can move through your slides as they sit on the screen right now, actually,
Okay.
I believe. Try to
I'm
go to
not
slide.
having any good fortune with that. I am presenting. I am presenting.
So in your slide deck, if you click on slide number 6, it should go to the next slide.
That's oh, friends. We I'm not seeing that. What have I done?
Try to advance forward 1 slide.
Yeah, but I'm not sure how to do that. I'm seeing something on screen. Does everybody see this where it says generation and work values? Yeah, you hear
Correct.
clicking, but the screen is frozen. And I'm not able to click maximize anywhere within here and have it do anything, but you probably see my mouse moving. Maybe I can draw some letters.
We do not see your mouse moving.
You do not see my mouse moving. Fantastic.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop presenting. Should I start again? Present to
There we go.
audience.
Let's try that one more time.
Okay. Share screen. I don't want to share that. I want to share the window.
Correct. Share the window where your presentation is at.
I've only done this a few hundred times and it's still okay. Now you should see the screen within the screen. And
Yep,
can you see now that there is a black cat teleporting?
that is correct.
Oh, that's excellent. Let us do this because yeah, I was super excited about this. I'm gonna go ahead and start from current slide, and we're all gonna forget we had problems here because that's the only way to go ahead for it. So I'd like somebody to confirm with me. Can we see generations and work values?
Yes, you can. You are good.
I don't know what I did. I'm not doing anything differently. Okay.
We can see
Tara
it.
gives her thumb of
Thank you,
approval.
Eric.
Yay, everybody. Thank you so much for your
We worked through it.
patience.
Apologies
We're
to
going to work
everyone.
through it. Exactly. That's why I have a short presentation, that and because everybody's going to have some questions. So if you saw nothing at all before, oh, we're going to have some fun. Generation and work values. Respect means something different. We did that. We all want to matter. We did that. And then this was the big thing I was so excited about. Experience and innovation are not opposites. They're not on a continuum. That means that your Gen Z person does not want to pay dues. Your Gen Z person is really excited about contributing, and so is your millennial. Whereas if you look a little bit further up into our older generations, they all had to pay some dues, and so there's some expectation there. Pay your dues. So be cognizant of that, and that's a differing value. And feedback and expectations differ in terms of advice, etc. So we just communicate differently. Again, this is an hour-long talk I've condensed into 5 points on a slide. So here's the fifth. Because these things differ, we suffer from miscommunication and therefore noise. All right, we ready? Because you missed it last time. Teleport, and that's how we do it. So we've been through communication, we've been through communication woes, and we've also been through a little bit of the intergenerational workforce, which of course I will bring that back. And now, for some reason, we're going to talk about cybersecurity. So again, that whole Venn diagram of these things, and then that crazy thing, which I guess you didn't even see, but imagine your worst amalgamation of whatever you might throw in a bowl. That's what I was showing. And if you go and get the slides later, you'll be able to see it. AI cleaned it up a little bit. Anyway, we're talking cybersecurity here. And you, as MSPs, have a trusted relationship with your clients. And so, if they're curious about something or they see it in the news, they're going to bring it to you. And probably cybersecurity is one of those things. If you are an MSP that doesn't offer cybersecurity services or you partner with somebody else, they're still probably going to come to you. And so, you have that trusted relationship. So, what do you do with that? They're going to assume you have competence in all things technology, whether or not you actually do. So I'm going to pull a little bit more on the trusted relationship. And you know that you're familiar with their environment, and they know that also. You are then the first line of defense and blame. So these are all reasons why you should care about cybersecurity in some of the things that you're looking to do. And then you are also the logical choice as their source of questions and knowledge and expertise because of all these reasons. And again, I recognize there are going to be varying levels. Some of you will be MSSPs, some will be MSPs with MSSP partners, etc. But you're probably fielding questions about cybersecurity you may or may not be offering training about. So when you talk about small businesses and medium businesses, we often use the SMB, so small and medium businesses. And medium businesses at the highest level before they go into large businesses can be giant. And so I want to talk about an area, because I give a whole talk on this as well, of the people who are not even potentially served by MSPs. And so in December, I gave a talk and did some stats about this for a UK organization. And what I found is that the very small businesses, there's no way to group these with the medium businesses. There are only 1 to 10 employees, so 10 or fewer employees. 78.5% of businesses in the United States fall under this. A lot of people working for themselves, so a solopreneur or a company of two, or maybe a small nonprofit with 6 or 7 people in the office. And if they're not growing, they probably are not using the service of an MSP. They may have had their 14-year-old nephew set up their network, and they don't see themselves as technological entities, even though they are likely using either Google Suite, whatever they call that now, the Google, or Microsoft 365. And so they are doing email and they are doing applications, and these things are in the cloud now and they have internet access. And so we know there are risks there, and they are technological companies because of it. And then some of them are growing. You might have a startup that will be on its way to a medium business, and how do they know when to engage the services of an MSP? So I wanted to throw that out there in that thought. Small businesses of this caliber, they require some persuasion for cybersecurity adoption of any point. And so that enters into a potential for you to give some civic training where you can reach them, chambers of commerce, etc. I've done a whole lot of talks where there are people who fit this 1 to 10 employees, and maybe they knew some of the things I talked about in a cyber hygiene perspective, and then they leave with their eyes a little bit open. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to do that too. I'm gonna have to watch my time a little more closely just because of the fun. So I have three levels that I talk about with very small business cybersecurity. And that first is that cyber hygiene and the training opportunity that I mentioned. Second is when we start to look within an organization's people and processes and whether or not they have policies and how good they are. And in so doing, after trust, there can then be this acceptance that there is a journey to undertake to do something with your security because everybody's connected, everybody's online. I have a slide I like to use that says Janice's phone is connected with Bill's refrigerator and Jennifer's Ring doorbell and Taylor Swift's tour bus. The idea is we are truly all connected now. And sometimes that concept has to be part of the conversation because we don't get to actually doing anything like an assessment or really making changes that cost money until we understand that there's a journey and that acceptance. And then the level three of what I've classified is where we actually start the work. So, just something to think about. And I know this bleeds into some of the bigger businesses, 15 people or more too, who maybe aren't where they need to be, but they're likely working with an MSP, hopefully. So, we ready? We're going to teleport again. Now, we've got all three concepts gently laid out, and I got to tie these up in about 10 minutes. And then there'll be time for some questions. Whoosh. All right. So when I was figuring out what these need to look like, most of these are going to be for later consumption if you're interested, but I just kept coming up with these C words. And so now you see MSP. We had consider, we had communication, we had cybersecurity, and all these other C words. And so I decided to make a framework with just a bunch of C words and to look across the different generations and maybe how we see SEE differently. So, this was the framework I came up with, which is communication, curiosity, clarity, context, the current content, how we consume content, cohesion, and culture. Are you ready? Just briefly, I'll spend about 30 seconds on each one of these. Again, if you don't feel like going to get the slides, you can certainly take a screenshot of these or what have you. The baby boomers, they are very direct and formal. They may miss digital tone nuance and things like that. They like simplicity. They are curious, but less so, more practical. They definitely like clarity and value precision, want everything with clear definitions, clear instructions. For content, they might be skeptical and are likely skeptical of newer formats like memes and short form communication. And I don't really want to read these slides to you. You can see what's going on here in the lovely framework with the boomers. I do want to look at culture though. They are often compliance first, which is yet another C word, not curiosity first. Gen X, my generation, we grew up, they called us the latchkey kids, where our parents were both working. That was the first real generation where that was prevalent. We would have to let ourselves in after school. And I remember my Commodore 64, yet another C word, and I don't have time for this, and neither do you. So you can take a look here. We're starting to see modern technological adoption, but not so much, except for the later portion of Gen X. When they're in school, a lot of people not having computers in school yet. I didn't have computers in school until college. So everything is centered, in my opinion, on these intergenerational things, on the technology we grew up with and incorporated in our lives. So Gen X, pretty pragmatic, individualistic, skeptical by nature, you see on the clarity. Really need that clarity to break through and build some trust and overcome the cynicism, which is yet another C word. Big picture goals, don't waste my time. I laughed at that because, oh, yes. Okay. Consistency, cohesion. The millennials, we are starting to see some adaptation here into the digital natives for the later millennials. And we start to see that in how we consume and make content and what we value. It's very funny. In my company, I worked one place for 22 years and I own part of that. And when we moved me out of the day to day, my millennial business partner said, we'll make a bunch of videos. And the person who came in to do much of my role was about my age, and she was kind of confused by that, why we had videos, more videos than written content. It's all very different how we see what we're looking at here. So cohesion, very sensitive to inconsistencies in brand and message, and then the culture feedback driven, very important there. I'll do a quick time check and I'll move on to our Gen Z friends because not everything is going perfectly today. That's okay. So we know this most likely because if you have a bunch of Gen X people on here, Gen Z or our kids, they are very digital native. They are not necessarily security focused. You see a lot of emphasis on our older generations needing some training and skill, especially in the cyber hygiene. Well, definitely our Gen Z people do as well because, hey, I've always had this thing. It's always been safe, safe. So I want to lead with the builds trust and authenticity and not authority. So when you're working with the Gen Z people, be you, be real, and don't expect them to pay their dues. Again, big talk on this, and we've distilled it to a few minutes. So again, you're feeling like I've mashed these three things together, and this is probably why this talk made it in the rejection bin, but I'm having fun with it, and hopefully you are too. So it leads to, what do I do with all that? Do you need 4 different types of training? No? Yes. I want to tell you that stories work with everyone, and I didn't really tell that many of them, but I want you to know to tell the stories with some clarity and don't paint them. And what I mean by don't paint them is we don't have to go 6 levels deep into an outline, into a full character sketch to get the point across of what's happening with somebody. We do want some suspense. And so there needs to be a reason to stick with it, a hook, but please don't paint your stories because people will tune out. Current events, I love current events whenever I wanna make some sort of cybersecurity allegory. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll probably see me doing that with stories or tying something that doesn't seem anything like it would belong with cybersecurity and tying them together. Current events are great for that because people are generally interested, especially if they are crime related. Yet another C word because crime is fascinating to people. Understand these things above about current events, cybersecurity, and stories, and incorporate these in your communications about cybersecurity when you're one on one or in small groups. I really like to point to that civic opportunity to do some training and talk about the things that should resonate with everybody about cybersecurity because there's a lot of fear with cybersecurity. Even if people don't really think there's a problem that would happen to them, they're certainly not certain. Another C word. And consider when that digital native kicks in with the mid millennials and adjust your conversations accordingly. And understanding that and the technology and the expectations and where things shift with social media. I think that's really important in giving training. All right. I couldn't resist with more C's. So the clarity, clarion call, quality of your content over your quantity. And I don't mean number of videos because definitely short videos, if we're going the video route, tend to resonate more than the 15-minute variety. I hear that from a lot of people. The information I've given you, though it is a lot and some of it was missing slides, it's a lens to help with your communication. And security is definitely not built on fear or the C word consternation. It is built on hope for the future and what we can do. And some of the small things, when we go back to those super small businesses, doing cyber hygiene really matters to them. And it gives them an idea and an understanding that, okay, we're starting, we made a difference, we're safer, but there's a whole lot more work to do. Or, like I often say, Mario, there's another princess in another castle, just that journey thing again. Clear communication persuades. So don't do a talk like this where you try to mash 3 things together and see if it's going to stick to the wall, whether or not it's made of all these leftovers I was talking about. The clearer you can get with just a couple of concise points, then I think you'll drive your message home really well. And again, the training and the cybersecurity is so important. And ask your people for help in making relevant content. You can bring that Gen Z person in if you're going to talk to a high school group of seniors about something like digital footprint. I've done that before. I brought my teenagers in and I said, okay, how can I make sure this resonates and it isn't boring? So ask your people for help. Knowing your audience, tailor what you have a little bit if it's going to be a live training, and then make sure that you are trying to reach everybody. So then please do create, and by creating, then conquer. Right. I think I almost did it. Are we at, yeah, we're at 129. So it was not as clear as it could have been because the slides didn't show, but I did hit my 130 target. So we've got some conversation time. I am Heather Noggle. These are my 3 main areas of conversation that hopefully did go together. And I'm going to do something a little bit different than leave this slide up. I'm going to show you the first one so that you can see the big mess of leftover food I was talking about. And cats run the world. So with that, if you want to bring on some questions, you all better have some because if not, I ask you questions and those are going to be,
We absolutely do have some questions. You did so well. Thank you for working with us on the technical difficulties.
oh,
So we've definitely got a few in here. So let's bring
Okay.
this one up on stage. Can you see that?
I think I can if I get out of here and come there. Yes.
All right. So are you seeing more employees who are a blend of these different generations? I'm just going to give you my feedback on this because I am a millennial proudly, but I have an older sister that is Gen X. She's like right on that line. So I feel like I took a lot from her. So I would love to hear what you have to say on this too.
Oh yeah, just the mindset and I'm half Gen Z, just having 2 teenage boys and all the things. I've got the lingo, I've got the slang, and of course, I just mortify them if I use it. The Chopped is not the only example. I'll tell my 18-year-old he's got aura, and I just think we're more interesting if we aren't stodgy, and so the Gen X can be a little stodgy, and then the older generation, the boomers, can be a little stodgy. I think we are. I think we adopt who we are, but when we get in the workplace, our work styles, they're gonna be a little more stereotypical because work is a more serious thing than when we are ourselves riffing around having fun. So I'm wondering if I throw that back at you, Tara, when you look at how you approach work, does that change a little?
So it's funny because we actually have this conversation pretty regularly. I have a friend who's also millennial who complains about millennials all the time. And I'm like, you do know you're one. He's like, but there are definitely different
Yeah.
kinds. And it's almost like who's an earlier millennial versus a later millennial. You
Yes.
can tell I mean, I grew up without technology, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I know Gen X was like the official ones that did, but I didn't get a cell phone until I was in high school. So I still have that memory of
Mhm.
having to go to the library and use a card catalog and things like that. So I do
Mhm.
think it can be within one, I guess you would say like millennial or Gen X or one generation, but there's almost another divide within there, I think.
I agree. 15 years is a long time. And if you looked at those, I went over that very quickly 15 years on the generations. The ones that are close there in the years, they're going to be more like each other and less like
Mhm.
the beginning of their generation. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Matt.
how do you suggest maybe having those conversations with these people? Like, is it just you learn about them over time and you kind of
Mhm.
adapt?
Yeah, when I give that intergenerational big talk, we talk a lot about making sure that opportunities are available to everybody in the workforce because sometimes we look at our boomers like, oh, they don't need training. They're only going to be here another year. What kind of silliness is that? You offer the training to everyone. If you have somebody who is 64 years old and wants to upskill in a way that can help your organization, that person might stay to 70. We don't know. We're individual people and we don't want to stereotype our generations on what they might or might not need. But I tell you what, when you are looking at key positions, whether they are 40, 25, or 65, we need to be documenting internally what people are doing who are integral to our organizations. And people might be planning to retire. We just have to look at things procedurally, and we know that our older generation is likely going to retire before our early generation. So the same thing, we can really start to have conversations with our younger people and then the generation of their parents, which is where the clashes often are. So if you look at Gen X and Gen Z and you look at the boomers and the millennials, we see some clashes. But if we can work together to make sure everything's documented and working well, then that's a way to include people. And the inclusion is very important. I was all over with that.
Absolutely.
Just like the talk,
Uh,
all over the place.
no, hey, that's just my brain every day. But I love that Will commented this. He uses slang incorrectly. I
Oh,
don't use slang
yes.
either. Like, and I think back to the ones I grew up using, and I still say to this day, I'm like, I'm 37 years old. I
No
shouldn't be
cap, Matt
saying.
Lee, I see you, that's right, and that one, golly, my 18-year-old has this sales job, and so he just walks around all high and mighty, and, "Mom, do I have aura?" "Yes, son, you have aura, you made some sales today, good job."
I love that. I love it. So we have a few more questions. So
Sure.
this one, let's see. Do you have suggestions on being a good storyteller? A lot of
Oh,
cybersecurity conversations feel like they're led with fear. You mentioned that. So we don't want to lead with making people worried about things.
there's a woman named Lori Robertson. She's local to me and she's a speaker coach. And I got to see her speak at one point. And her biggest thing that is just the coolest thing ever, she's like, show up on stage, don't talk about your microphone, don't talk about the fact that none of your slides work. Just show up on stage and start talking. And people are like, and so that was always the you just grab their attention. I do that now everywhere I go. I just start talking. And then people are like, "Oh, okay." So, drop people in the middle of things is really where I wanna do that. When I write something, I will rewrite it so that I am dropping in the middle of something. It's that hook of, "Oh, okay. I wanna figure out what's going on there." And the other thing is to reemphasize when speaking. If you've got a main point instead of 3 unrelated, so I guess I had 9 main points, then reiterate those as you go throughout and make sure that you touch them from all the angles so that as your audience leaves, it's like, oh, okay, those are the 3 main points. And then you'll probably remember from my talk, cybersecurity, communication. Oh, what was that third one? Oh, yeah, intergenerational workforce. But, you know, I think that that helps with storytelling, the inflection, the interest in your own story. Don't ramble like Heather. That too.
Hey, I like a good ramble. Don't be judgy about that. I love rambling. It's my favorite
Pause.
thing to do.
The strategic pause is another thing. It's like, "Oh, what's
Yes.
she gonna say next?"
I have not learned that yet. I hope that more speaking I do, I will. And we actually have one more question. If anyone has any other ones, please pop them in here. But this is our next one we've got. How do you suggest navigating conversations across generations so that everyone actually
Yeah.
feels heard and engaged and respected? Oh, and sometimes people don't have stories. Yeah, that's also
And
a
it's
thing, right?
really hard if you don't see the people. So if you're doing a webinar, for example, and you can't see the audience, but usually if you're in a room with people or even with Zoom somewhat, you can tell when people are disengaging, and that may or may not be generational. But I think that asking somebody's opinion is always good if you're in the room and you know the people. Sometimes you don't know the people. So I've given some talks. Most recently, I was at a bank giving a cyber hygiene talk, and I'm looking across the room, and I can see when people are engaged or not engaged. I may just bring up a point that would be relevant, or I think might be relevant to them and their generation. Sometimes they'll look up, and I think that it's just body language and understanding if I'm missing the mark somewhere with the person, if I can reach out in that moment and I've got the time and space to do that, fantastic. If not, you can certainly go up and talk to the person after. I've done that before too. That's just
Yeah.
you get to know the person. And golly, it's been so long since I had an in-person sitting in the chair, sometimes going in the conference room 5 days a week job. And so
Mhm.
that too, that's a whole other talk of how do we engage the hybrid workforce and make sure we catch things like this. So I answer it with a question. Anybody have any ideas on engaging the hybrid workforce about these kind of conversations? Because that's hard.
That is so difficult, right? Even with my boss, I know we'll be in the middle of a meeting and I'll see his eyes suddenly go that way. And I'm like, "No, no, nope. Whatever's on that screen, stop looking at it. Get back over here. I need you to close it." And it's definitely it's more difficult. I'm sitting in our MSP, but everybody in our SaaS company works remote. So it's
Yeah.
just like a whole different ballgame, right? I don't have good answers for it, but maybe somebody else does. Let's see. Let's put this over
Yeah.
here. That one, yeah, definitely. So they say common stories that everyone can relate to for sure, right?
Yeah. So I was at the grocery store and, we can find everybody going to the grocery store there. And I don't know. You got to jump. Thanks, Will. Thanks everybody for commenting and bearing with me through all this. I was a little nervous after that. I don't tend to be too nervous when I speak, but you can tell when I go that I definitely got some nerves here. So I want
You did
to
so well.
I want are we out of here or do can I share the
Yeah,
final?
I think
I want
we're gonna wrap up here. So thank you so much for joining. And
okay.
how can people get a hold of you? Let's wrap
Yeah,
up.
let me put this in here because I don't have my final screen up here. So I'm just gonna give you the whole there's the URL for everything. I mean, you just go to my Heather Noggle. I have my named site, heathernoggle.com. That's just an easy way to get a hold of me. It's got my LinkedIn on here. It's got my speaking page, my writing page, and then the rejection con slides. They're all there.
Oh,
So
I just
I
did
really
something.
appreciate everybody. It was very
Yeah,
fun.
this has been so great. So everybody, you can, I think we have a little break before our next sessions, or actually I think we're going straight into them. No, don't listen to me. Go straight to your next session, guys, from the schedule. Thank you so much, Heather.
Okay, thank you. Whoop, Heather Noggle, the
Bye.
.com needs to be in there. I can't type my own link.
Oh,
I'll put it
link
in
not
here. I don't
work.
know if this comes back.
I love it.
You know,
And Heather is super
bad.
active on LinkedIn too. So definitely hit her up over there too.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, everybody, for your
Awesome.
patience.
Thanks, Heather.